ancient. We are back in space with ancient wisdom. It's been a crazy week. This is episode 70. And yeah, lots going on. I figured I'd just touch on Elon destroying his reputation in 7 days real quick. Once you're rich, you lose something. We talked about it the other week with Joe Rogan, but once you're rich, you really do lose something. You've been rich for a little too long. You can't connect with the modern man anymore. And I said earlier, I says, it's as natural as green grass in the spring. And maybe, just maybe, this is what Jesus was talking about with the needle and the camel.
I think there's a huge benefit to actually working at the ground level with other people.
Seriously, yeah.
Like in the warehouse.
Undercover boss.
Yeah, like packing the box, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like you learn a lot about just those people. And if you're a billionaire who all he does is move shares around and move funding around between companies, you don't experience the plight and the hardships of the people at the bottom level. You just don't. You just really can't.
You just don't and you can't. Yeah, that's exactly it. You just don't and you can't. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to see them as just the scum of the earth. You know what? Have that boomer mindset. If they just work a little harder, maybe they'd be like me too. But they don't. So they don't deserve this. So I'm going to ship in Indians who do appreciate America. And come to find out that Boeing is outsourcing engineering jobs to Indians for $9 an hour. Mm-hmm. And that's why the planes keep falling out of the air.
Wow. That's crazy.
Dude, anything for a profit. An eternal question on ancient wisdom. Just think to yourself, comment if you have an answer, but how much is enough? When is enough enough? 400 billion, whatever Elon's worth, $500 billion now. Is it enough yet? You doing it? We have plenty of problems here, yet you're going to Mars.
That's a good question.
Food for thought. So let's get into it. To illustrate the theme of today, we go back to Aesop as usual because he's so deep. He takes the nature, simple animals and early jobs, and makes it mean more than it perhaps does on the surface. And we need that more than ever, really. So we got the peacock and the crane. Very simple story. The peacock boasts to the crane that he's beautiful. He says, dog, look at these feathers. I could get all the bitches. Way more than you, crane. You dull. But then the crane had to humbly remind him that, but dog, my feathers work. I could fly. How about you? You getting bitches? I'm exploring the world getting bitches. Ooh! Or whatever one likes to do.
Good for the crane.
Yeah,
to rationalize.
Very humble. He wasn't too mean about it.
He could easily be like, oh man, I'll never have that beautiful of a plume.
Yeah, seriously. Reminds me of designer jeans. So, the theme is sort of different manifestations of God. Just something to keep in mind. We all have our own role, much like Elon and us. Not to feel too jealous about it, but do what's best in your life. Live your own story without too much thought behind it. Because we're in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita. Recognizing the divine in oneself and in the world and its many different forms. And of course, all greatness being the reflection of the divine energy. All greatness coming from God, your talents, your skills, moments. So we start here, verse 3. I'm giving you the highlights. Only he who is free from illusions knows me as the unborn, without a beginning, and as the supreme Lord of the universe. He is then at once free from all sins. Damn. So this answers the question right off the bat of, when was the beginning of time? The scientists think it's the Big Bang. Christians have their own origin story. Many have the origin story. But in this one, it's saying, he who's without illusions know me as unborn, without beginning. Have you ever considered that about the universe? I heard that even with this new James Webb telescope, we're seeing even farther back now. Remember they always said 13.8 whatever billion?
Yeah, I haven't been following it, but I heard
they
something
said it's like double that now or something. So I'm like, dog, is this not ancient wisdom?
Yeah. And there's still no end to it.
And then, okay, say you see the end of the universe. Is there a multiverse? People talk about that all the time too.
Do you think maybe once we get the next telescope, we'll see further and be like, "Oh, it's older.
It's even older." Yeah.
And like the further you look, just the more it goes.
The strangest thing is the conceited nature of the scientific mind. That if I said 10 years ago, the universe is probably 20 billion, you idiot. What are you, dumb? You don't even know science. And then it's like even older than that, supposedly. But I know that when I first even heard or had the thought that maybe God and the universe has just been here, there was no beginning, that kind of put my mind at ease a lot. Oh, almost made more sense. Because then you get into these weird thoughts. Oh, God was at the beginning. When is the beginning? Then you ask the question, what is time?
Oh, man.
Right? Who gave birth to God? Nothing from something, then it wasn't nothing. Then you can't define it as what we know as nothing.
You said it puts you more at ease to know that
Yeah,
it's just always been here.
It's always been here. Always been here, always will. There is no birth. Okay, I don't have to think about that. It's just here. That makes more sense because that's me. Isn't that so deep, guys? The universe, the Bible is your life. It's all your life. If you think about that, you will gain instant wisdom. Woo!
And I think when I believe that there was a beginning to all of this, like one point that you could trace it back to, it makes me more identify with my experience, thinking that it was intended to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't waste this one life with this one body because there was a beginning.
Yeah.
If there's a beginning, there must be an end. But how do I know if there's an end?
It does feel, I mean, let me know what you guys think, but does it not feel like a continuous thing? I was born and you could call that a beginning, but I'm like, nah, I was always here. Like you know what I mean? Like you're maybe an infant and you don't have any memories, and one day you kind of just have memories and you come online maybe. But it's not that you just came from nowhere.
Especially because babies have those kind of existential questions for a while too, when they're just starting to learn how to communicate. Because the other day I was thinking, why did I have to be born in this time of the turn of the 21st century, where all this like corruption and war and chaos and plagues are happening?
Another one that I
born in the wrong time.
But then I thought, like, oh, what other choice was there? Like I might be saying the same thing if I was born 700 years ago. Why the 1500s?
Damn, if only there was internet. Yeah. Sorry, what's up, folks?
Oh yeah, there's a weird one I heard. It's like, why am I me instead of him?
Oh, yep.
Like if everything is all scientific and the brain gives rise to consciousness, like why are you, like how did you win the lottery of being in this brain?
Oh,
if it gives rise to consciousness.
And even Watts talked about one time, who would I be if my father was a different guy? Would it still be me? I know, right?
It's a good question.
Yeah. And so in a certain way, the universe, these ancient texts, they're trying to tell you something about yourself, but also the unknowable nature of it. Because as we heard from earlier chapters, one should not try to understand Krishna as a human being. Only a foolish person thinks of him as a human being.
Because that's like all we know.
Yeah.
We think that's all we know because that's what we are.
Damn! And we're always wrong.
Maybe that's why.
there's the evidence.
Maybe that's why we want to say the universe has a beginning and an end, because we do.
Yes,
because we're just projecting ourselves onto everything.
Well put. I think we got to the bottom of it. But yeah, so why is it that knowing this simple fact frees one of sin? So now you know that the universe had no beginning. Why is that freeing you of sin, would you say?
To know that the universe has no beginning?
That's all it is. That's what he says. You're free from illusion to know God as unborn, without beginning, and the supreme Lord of the universe. If you know this, he is free from all sin. Very mysterious. Oh, why are these two connected? Any thoughts? Or shall I?
I think it's because you have to come to a point you realize God is beyond thought itself. So you have to get to a point of, what was it? Being unborn? Was that the word?
Unborn. God is unborn, yeah.
Right. So if we don't know what it's like to be unborn, then and there is a way to be unborn as we're living, then it seems like there's some kind of mental shift that needs to happen.
Yes.
Maybe sin happens because we believe in a beginning and an end, and we're afraid of it.
Oh, yes.
And we react to it.
Very close. Yes, you're right there.
In bad ways.
Yeah, pretty much. You guys got it in the sense that when we know that God is unborn, we are also freed from the illusion itself of knowing. This concept of knowing, to think that we know, to think that we can know, to give God a birth, to give God a human story. Because these stories always get distorted. They always become lies. Like you said, Hubble thought one thing and then it changes with fashion. And we always think we know every step of the way. And the sin is the knowing. The sin is the false concept of knowing and defining God as us who can know, the humans.
So what I hear you saying is that it just comes back to the old ancient wisdom rule of like, if you think you know, you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
Because when you think you know, you're wrong. and that's a sin. And that is one of the biggest sins. I mean, just think about it. I always forget the word. What's the non-religious word?
Secular?
Secular. Think about a secular scientific way where every time you think you know something, you always learn something new about somebody. You always realize you didn't have the whole story. You build up an emotion in your head. Maybe you get angry at something, and that wasn't even the case the whole time.
Oh, it's a natural progression towards like reality correcting you because you're making too much of an assumption, basically.
Right, exactly. And the mind, by its very essence, lags in the past because you're analyze something that happened, and that's like, as time presses on, you get farther and farther behind. And you're sort of just thinking you know about this, but oh wait, it's up there, and you got to run and catch back up and be with it, be what's going on. And I think we must understand the difference between fun, right? We always talk about having fun here because fun is in the moment. Fun is being with God, and fact. So fun is sort of the story and myth. You can have fun with thoughts. You can be in your head, but the fact that we think of is sort of this unknowable. Now, it's this weird bipolar thing where the fact of the nature is unknowable. How could it be a fact if it's unknowable? It's bipolar, right? And the story and myth that comes with the civilizations before us, because these mythologies describe peoples from which they came more than gods themselves. You ever think about that? The stories that the mythological origin stories that cultures have, they describe the culture more than they describe God.
I always felt like when they started this culture story keeping, I guess maybe cave paintings might be the first example.
Right.
I always felt like it was like, we want someone to know what happened to us.
Oh, could be ancient alien hypothesis.
Yeah, it's like almost like man, it's like you're in so much survival mode and in such a plight of survival and hardship in this ancient world that you have no time, and then maybe like when you have some free time, you're like, what does it all mean? If only someone knew what I went through.
Yeah.
And maybe you're like, I'm gonna paint this cave.
Yeah. Finally, for 1 minute in your life, you got a free moment, and you just paint.
You just paint your story,
like,
maybe.
what is it? Yeah, right.
You know, like I'm just thinking like what I would do if I like had like, oh man, I got like some time.
Yeah.
From hunting.
Paint what happened. Paint what you are, what you did. Very true.
I feel like that's what they did.
That's such a great point, because all these ancient texts, we tend to think in modern days that they are direct revelations from God and from divine interventions in the past, but really we remove the fact that we're just reading it through a human being's interpretation of what God is like. It's not about God. It's always indirectly about God through what the person experiences. What we're reading, it's almost like our whatever we learn on ancient wisdom might as well have just been people writing the Bible.
Yeah.
Because we're in live time, we're coming up with these divine things that we learn and we want to put out there. That's basically what the Bible was.
Wow, guys, deep fucking points today. This is great. We're getting to wisdom right now. Dude, think of futuristic people see this as the Bible. No, I'm just kidding.
But that's weird because it's egotistical to say that, but...
No, but you hit the nail on the head, because I think what I hear you saying is... what you're getting at is that we are three men in this room seeking truth. And the truth, to the best of our ability, that has been discovered throughout our lifetimes is now on record in a show we call Ancient Wisdom. Is that so different than the writers of the Bible?
Right, because when whoever the writers were, at least Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, when they were writing stuff or telling the story about how it happened in their lives, I bet you there still were people even at that time like, psh, what is this story about this guy named Jesus? What are you guys even talking about?
Yeah, true.
They weren't concerned with those things. They were,
especially the more mystical Old Testament, because so much of it is fantastical.
Right.
It's just like...
There probably were really naysayers at that time, too.
Yeah, to each their own, I guess, if it helps you. But I think it helps a lot more to just see it as that, to see these stories as metaphorical. Some of it could have happened, maybe it didn't. But also really just consider the nature of humanity, I think, is very important. Oh, it's divinely inspired, they say. And maybe it is. This is divinely inspired. I wake up in the morning, I'm divinely inspired. You know what I mean? So the human nature says, I want to deceive you for profit. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind as well.
It really...
Take the good stuff, leave the bad stuff, much like we're discovering ancient wisdom here. You take the good stuff and you leave like all the weird bad stuff they did in the past. Don't poop in the streets.
It really reveals our hierarchical mindset as human beings, because we see the Bible as like, those were the real stories about God.
Yeah.
Like the Tao Te Ching, that Eastern text, what is that? Lao Tzu was dumb. Like he wasn't as wise as...
Y'all didn't mention Jesus once.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what we do. We tend to think some divine lessons are better than others, kind of thing.
Isn't that deep? And you could use the word divinely inspired maybe more aptly for the Tao Te Ching, because there's no characters. It's just like... Yeah,
it's like the wind and water.
Aesop is closer to that shit. But teach their own if it helps you.
Main character in the Tao is the ground.
Yeah,
the water.
The earth.
Well, the characters in the Bible, though, could easily have just been someone else, like interchangeably. Instead of Paul, it was Jeff. Who knows?
That son of a bitch. So I think it's important to see. So the lesson of we're only in the first one. I love it. Is that these stories are attitudes toward the unknown. Mm-hmm. I think if you take anything with you, take that. When people tell stories, like Poach mentioned, you get a free minute to write it down. It's how these peoples and this person in particular felt toward the unknown in their lives. The 7 great sages and the 4 Karumas, my friend.
The what?
And the Manus, from whom all creatures originated, took birth from my mind. What stands out to you? Ooh. The Munas and the Kuchujas?
Yeah, I need to ask about those.
Kumaras and the Manus?
Maybe later.
Yeah, maybe that's a question for later. Suffice to say that, yes, well put, Evan. But suffice to say that the great sages and the Karumas and the Manus... Kumaras and the Manus were sort of the progenitors of mankind.
Prometheus.
They're Prometheus. They were the early humans, Adam and Eve and all them.
Kumara and Manus.
There was Kumara and Manu. Fuck Adam and Eve. There's Kumara and Manu. They had sex, but there is an evil Kshatriya who came down and tempted Kana Manu. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So that's how I know it anyway.
I think it's interesting how they speak from the first person of my mind. Everything derives from my mind.
Yeah, because Krishna's talking from the perspective of Sri Bhagavan. So he's saying my mind. Is that my phone, my friend? I'm getting messages from prostitutes. All right.
That was funny, Cameron.
Yeah, that was good. Perfect time as I'm reaching over here. But so Evan said it, right? Took birth from my mind. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Because I know in the West, and maybe most people's, modern people in particular, I'm a material girl living in a material world. It's all very material. God crafted the world with his hands in 7 days. And then he made the waters. And then he made the Adam, and then he crafted Eve out of a rib. He made it. It's physical. Everything's very physical. But this guy's saying, nah. Y'all bitches took birth from my mind. Right?
This one is totally. I got nothing.
Nothing? Okay.
Yeah,
if you got nothing, that's fine.
First time on AW, I don't get it.
I don't have anything.
I got nothing.
So I'm starting you off with a couple clues here, right? Which is we have a mental birth versus a very physical birth origin story. What does this say about the progenitors? What does this say about our cultural mindsets? But moving on, it's saying the real world is very physical, right? But we call it demonic in the West, the physical nature of demonic. So isn't that funny that I define this modern world as very demonic? Because everything is so physical. We've forgotten about the spiritual, perhaps even the mental. And yet the Hindus come from that it's merely the mind of God. Much like, you ready for this, Bo? You're going to have something to say about this.
I hope.
The simulation hypothesis.
Oh, no.
That's become so popular now.
I see what you're saying.
Wouldn't that be more conducive toward that sort of hypothesis rather than everything's physical, hard matter?
So you're saying we're living in God's dream.
There it is.
And what my question is, if all things come from his mind, why can I interpret them in my mind?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Maybe it's not your mind, Evan.
Damn, just another illusion. Whoa, I had a dream just last night. Maybe the universe is giving me a gift. I had a dream that I was Evan.
It was a nightmare?
It was a nightmare. My life was awful. I was ugly and no. Just kidding. It was weird. I was at a deli counter.
I was too.
Yeah, whoa.
That's where he would be.
I'm there quite.
And I was
quite
talking to a fat chick behind the desk.
That
Whoa,
very
this is
recently,
real.
yes, yeah.
And she's like, Are you Evan? You were also famous too. Are you Evan? She was like, my name is Evana. and she thought we were soulmates or something, and I'm like, oh, that's very funny. That just means it's gonna be a lucky day for you.
It's just similar, yeah.
Just don't worry about it, girl. And then she charged me $900 for alcohol.
Wow.
I'm like, I didn't even buy alcohol. She's like, you could have told me that earlier.
Because you didn't find the coincidence in the names being the same.
Yeah. She was mad that we weren't soulmates, so she charged me $900. She charged you $900. But, fun little thing. I forget where it goes from there.
I was going to ask,
job
how did that
or
relate to...
I don't know. But, you're someone else. You're living through somebody else's mind. Simulation hypothesis. Guys, I have thought that I have been dead for years. I thought I died 10 years ago. Now, English grammar might make that confusing. But no, I think...
What does that mean?
Yeah, right? What does that mean? I think I have been dead and then I'm like a ghost living on this world because life is just too fucking unreal in 2024. If you really have a mind, if you have eyes to see, step back. There's alien drones in the sky, countless things. There's AIs and shit. What we're living in, there's no sense of reality and community left. There's no ancient, real nature left. So I just think, especially from this world where we have completely different rules for quantum, that the world seems so physical, but the greatest minds who have ever existed in humanity say, I have no fucking idea what's going on here. Not a clue. We have theories and they're all proven wrong. Could it really be that complicated if we just lived in a physical world? Why would it be so complicated? No, you'd have 1 + 1 = 2.
So
1 + 1 always equals 2, no matter where you are, what you do, no matter what size quantum state you're at. Doesn't make sense.
What I hear you saying is the physical world is a projection of God.
The mind of God, my friend.
You know what?
And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is saying.
If you zoom out on the universe, it kind of looks like a brain.
Oh, I believe it. The interconnectedness, yeah. them neurons. So we'll keep that in mind for now, that I'm defining that the world is the mind of God. It's not a physical nature like we see. We're just learning here, guys, right? We're just learning that in the West, it's all very physical, but the East sees it as mental almost. And not just mental, the mind of God, which I might even define as spiritual. Mind of God, we see it as the spirit. And the closest thing we have, correct me if I'm wrong, is something resembling a simulation hypothesis right now.
Maybe that's
numbers on a screen.
Maybe that's why it's so hard to get enlightenment or peace or whatever you want to call it these days, because it's harder for us to believe that it's just a physical world and there aren't vibrations and waves going on and stuff like that, because the scientists who are really into the physical stuff have gone down as small as you possibly could to look at things, and they've looked out as far as they possibly could, and they're still not done on either end of the spectrum.
And they say, I got nothing.
Even
not
with all
a
the tools.
clue.
If we're so smart.
Dog, you don't even have a theory. You don't even have a path, an idea. Seriously. Like, how crazy is it? I don't know. I'm just going on a tangent here. But how crazy is it that we don't even have, like, a heading? If to use pirate terminology, me and Pojo.
No pirates right now.
We're in a pirate phase.
I heard from one study or one comparison of the size of things. We're like right in the middle between the biggest and the smallest observations.
Damn, ain't we always in the middle?
Yeah, like if you do the scale wise, like the smallest thing we know is just about as many times different as the biggest thing we know.
Oh, you mean 10 to the power of negative 5,000, 10 to the power of 5,000.
Yeah, we're like our size of observation is like smack dab in the middle.
Dude, that is pretty cool, but I could also be an asshole and be like, that's just because we are us.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, because it supports the fact that it just supports another circular shape somehow.
Yeah.
It implies another circular shape, because if we're at the center and we can only see a certain diameter around our existence,
out and down,
then who's to say we're actually at the middle? We're just at the middle of our measurement point.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Exactly.
You know, and you think about, why did the ancients create the mandalas, my friend? Why did they create the Ouroboros? Think about it. Oh, this might be too deep for you guys, but when you see the mandalas, the center, it's like, where are you? Where are you in time? God is at the center of the mandala. The presence is at the center. But if you're seeing it, if you're seeing the whole nature of it, you are separate from it. You are lagging behind. Who is the mandala? What is it? Again, this might be too deep for the common public, but really think about it. Why do we see that when we're tripping? What is the Ouroboros? What is the snake eating its own tail?
Time to get ancient. Time to get ancient.
9. My devotees fix their mind and consciousness in me and surrender their lives to me. Their only satisfaction lies in constantly discussing me and enlightening each other. Man! Oh my God, am I a devotee of Krishna, my friend?
Mitch, have you surrendered your life to Krishna?
In a weird way. Now, let me explain. Great question, because I kind of feel like I have surrendered my life to Krishna.
You're like, yes, I have.
Yes, I have, my friend. I speak Indian way too much. But I think it's so true for me, and yet kind of a very few others that I know personally, like many of my friends, that they'll even just like push off anything a little too religious, like, whoa, get that Bible stuff out of here. Get the whoo. You know, and even before I was into the religious nature, I was into the philosophical nature, and they would still do that. It just resembles thinking too deep.
You're making them brains.
Yeah, using too much mental power at any given state. It was like, whoa, they push it away too fast. And, you know, I tend to just call it philosophy typically, but it's greater than that, because historical people have thought certain ways about things, and maybe they didn't call it philosophy, but they got to like a deep truth, and it's just the funnest thing for me. Maybe philosophy is the gateway drug to religion, but it's just how people think, why we think at the beginning. It's endlessly interesting to me. So in that way, I have devoted my life to Krishna.
You've opened your mind up to studying the opinions of the world, like the not even opinions, I guess the knowledge collected of the world.
Right.
And you've opened your mind to saying, oh no, none of it is right. I'm going to hold them all in equal regard. So maybe in that sense you are a devotee of Krishna.
Absolutely, well put. I'd like to think so.
Doesn't the Indian doesn't all the Indian tradition tell you like you just worship whichever Hindu god you want, just have any god?
All the gurus are just like, you could do whatever religion, and I'm like, wait, don't call myself guru, but it's just like I feel that way too.
And they're like,
whatever
you will still
brings
be
you to
accepted by Krishna.
Yeah, Krishna will like you, dog. You're good. If you're afraid of Krishna, all these other gods are only like, oh, I'm the only one, blah, 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 blah. But even that's just poetry. You have to think of it as poetry and how much we lack poetry in modern times. It's got to be serious. I swear, like, we have an autistic crisis or something. Because I swear, most of my friends, I'll tell a joke and they'll be like, what? Excuse me? And I'm like, no, have you heard of humor? It's like a joke. I said something that I don't mean or something silly for the sake of laughter. I have to explain like what a joke is. They're like, I don't understand. That's not true.
Speaking of jokes, like you were just saying, I always use your joke about before I was alive, before I was dead or something. No, what was it? when I was dead, meaning before I was born kind of thing. Yeah. I said when I was dead, this happened.
They're like, what? Dude, I bet you got the same response. What? Excuse me?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. You weren't dead. What? Oh, God.
Or someone brings up a day before I was born. I'm like, oh, yeah, I was dead then.
I was dead then. Like, yeah, isn't that true? Wow, super funny. Look at that. So about these devotees, my friend, because they are constantly worshiping me with love, I give them the knowledge by which they can return to me. I care for them so much that I enter their hearts and destroy their ignorance like a bright lamp destroys darkness.
Wow.
So what I'm learning from this is that God gives us knowledge to destroy their ignorance. And I say, I felt this. I don't know about you guys, but I feel wise in my old age. And I was always retarded. And I said, where did this come from? Okay, I read a few books, but does that bring wisdom? Is it just pure age? Does that bring wisdom? I feel wise these days.
I almost want to say prolonged suffering can bring wisdom.
Yeah, I think so.
I got nothing else on where it comes from besides experience, which is suffering.
Deep. I like that.
I think to my point earlier, it's like, and Poja's point just now, there was so much hell experienced that if you go through all that and you're not dead, it seems like only naturally you're just going to get to the good for a while.
Right. I'm not dead anymore.
It's because, like I was thinking earlier, oh, why was I born in this time?
Yeah.
But then you think, oh, well, what other time would I have been born in if not now? So it's like this could be the greatest time ever or the worst time ever, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, very true. I think of the old ancient Chinese proverb, may you be born in interesting times.
That's an interesting proverb.
Very interesting proverb. I think it's so cool, so ancient Chinese. God, China, what happened to you?
I know.
You suck now. But ancient China, don't you love how they said not good times, not bad times, just interesting times. May you be entertained is what they're saying.
Wow.
May you be constantly stimulated. And if you think about Terence McKenna, the proliferation of novelty, universe as a novelty creating machine, maybe that's what it is. There's always these new things happening, and it's so deep I can't even put it to words. But in the past, you didn't need that. Your spiritual incarnation didn't need that. But once we've mastered these certain skills or ways of life, then it does increase novelty to increase proportionally
progress
with us. I won't say progress, but yes.
I think it's kind of funny to think about who that guy was who created that quote of "May you live in interesting times."
Yeah, he was a cool guy.
Right. I wonder if he probably was a cool guy, because I'm like, what asshole is in the middle of the woods thinking like, oh, someone's going to read this thousands of years from now and it's going to be funny
on a podcast.
Yeah, and it's going to be funny.
Like what?
Because he realizes like I live in interesting times, so he deliberately wrote wrote a note to someone out in the future.
Yeah.
That was a deep guy right there.
Yeah, dude, deep guy. And there's a fun story from this week. I was talking to a woman who was complaining about her family. And, not even realizing that her complaints about her family are really just her complaints about herself. And if I was an asshole, I'd be like, you're talking about you. Like you're a bitch too. You know what I mean? Like, look in the mirror. But without even thinking, I almost wasn't even present. I was so present that I almost wasn't present. And I just said to myself, something to the effect of, yeah, well, people don't change. It's been that way since the beginning of time. You can't change. Something to that effect.
Did she say, oh, thanks?
Yeah, wow. She was like enlightened in that moment.
Was that actually a reaction? Because I tend to find that people, when they're in... okay, I was going to say, it doesn't sound like her problem would have been cured because...
I was just so with God that it changed her life.
Maybe it just turned out so well for you that you thought she went away happy.
Yeah. I'm dying. I've been derailed.
You learned something from it, so you thought that she went away good.
Yeah, but just in that moment, like I that was the first time recently, and it's been happening a lot to me, where I hear myself talking. It's very interesting. It never really happened before. I'm like outside of myself, and I just hear a human being named Mitch talking, and I just said, God, is that you? Like, did you just speak through me? Like, it was so deep and wise that I'm like, this didn't even come from me. I just heard it happen. And I just stepped back like, holy shit. So, I come to find out that wisdom is sort of this simplicity that can't even be explained. And those who ask of wisdom are too full of knowledge to even hear it. How deep is that, right? The simplicity is the wisdom that comes with it. This is all I can decipher from wisdom. And that there's all these people who want it. They're fiending for it. They're holding to it. They're grasping. They're asking for it. But their mind is already filled with nonsense that we call knowledge.
Man, is everything obvious?
Dog, deep.
Is everything just obvious?
Deep, man.
That is.
What are we doing?
It's the strangest thing in the world. You've hit upon one of the deepest paradoxes in the universe, in my opinion, which is that sometimes life can be so easy and so simple. I think maybe all the time. I'll reframe that and say all the time life is so simple, so straightforward, so easy. And yet it seems to be the easiness, the simplicity is the hardest thing for humanity to achieve. Isn't that strange? In its essence, it's like a blank sheet of paper, but humans are just so neurotic. They need to scribble all over it all the time. At all. And they can't stop doing that. It's like, no. Just look at the paper. Just look. No. They're crazy.
It's blank.
It's blank. I need something. Deep.
It seems to go back to the needing of a beginning and end again.
Yes.
Because you're hooked on time because you want something to be.
Where did the paper come from? Oh my God!
Right.
Where's it going? I need to write the story.
And you're saying earlier how everyone wants to be enlightened and everyone wants peace, or something. One of those words.
Say it again.
You were saying how everyone wants peace. They crave peace and enlightenment, kind of thing. It can be people who give peace and who are gurus or whatnot, or people who have shows like Ancient Wisdom. It's like where do you think that divine spirit comes from? It all comes from the same source, the same people receiving the knowledge as well as giving the knowledge.
Very deep.
That's what the gurus always say too. There's nothing to teach.
Yeah, wow, so true. It's this pattern that repeats all throughout time. And I had this phrase too, that the mind that already desires is the mind that doesn't have any room for wisdom.
Yeah. Or the one who wants to improve is the very one that has to do the improving.
Yeah, but I came up with my own.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or you could say, the cup that is empty can be filled with the wisdom of God, stuff like that. Arjuna goes on to ask how he can keep God in his thoughts. How do I do it? If it's so easy, right? Krishna explains, as he's done many times before. Now, this is really weird, honestly, in the Bhagavad Gita. It's like reading the Gospels and going through the genealogy, Krishna for 15 verses, more than 15 verses, just goes on a long ass fucking poem about I am this, I am that, I am the sun if I'm the solar system, if I'm water I am the ocean, if I am a fish I am a shark. He's the best of everything. Suffice to say, I'll summarize it for you. But one of the last lines here is pretty interesting, that amongst the senses I am the mind, and amongst all living beings I am the consciousness. Damn.
He is the mind of all living.
Right, kind of referencing before, universe comes from the mind of God, correct? And I think, wouldn't you also say that the West doesn't really describe God as consciousness usually, if ever? I don't think I've ever heard God being like consciousness, not only the mind, but the perception of what is happening. It's also in the West, God is what's happening, it's here. But in this is kind of saying that God is the perception of what's happening through the mind here, coming from the mind of God.
Ooh, I see. It's like the East has, like you said, time is God. But in the West, God has control over time. And he's like totally independent of it. Because we're still applying our consciousness to a God consciousness, a being that has direct involvement of like, all right, now I'm going to make it thunder. Now I'm going to make hurricanes. Now I'm going to put a plague onto your house.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And in that sense, the time, it ties God closer to the present moment and to our actions in those moments. God in the positive and negative attitudes toward things. Because like, when is God described as your attitude toward things? It's very strange. It's always good and evil. And even that's like a little murky. Of course, people will describe it now, but that was the greatest trick that the devil ever played, was convincing the world that he doesn't exist. But in this, it's deeper than that. It is the mind. And the West says that God is good, right? What about the bad?
That's the devil.
Nobody ever talks about the bad, but it's like, why did God even create the devil if God is good, right? All these sort of questions, and you could say, yeah, that's the devil, that's the other side. But nowhere in Christianity is he described as like the nega God. No, he's just like an angel who decided to do his own thing. You know, he's like one.
So you're saying there is no good and evil?
Could be, my friend.
You're saying there is poles, polar.
I think the
structures.
West went through just a fluctuation of when good things happened. They're like, oh God, I love you, I praise you.
Yeah.
But when bad things happened is when they just forgot about God, so they invented the devil as like an antagonist to the good God.
God wouldn't do this to me. It's clearly somebody else. Yeah, that's a deep point. I like one of my favorite Norm Macdonald quotes is he's like, I finally figured it out, guys. If God can only make, or if God is all good, then he could only make bad.
Whoa.
Isn't that pretty deep?
That is deep.
God is good. God, everyone knows God is good. It says it. Everyone thinks it. God is good, but all that God can create is bad, and that's why the earth and the world is so demonic.
That was an enlightened guy right there.
Yeah, dude, he was something else, Doc. He was on the path, dude. He was a devotee of Krishna, my friend. He was constantly talking about it and trying to figure it out. And it's like, I think people who are non-religious talk about, oh, why are you talking about death all the time and philosophy? Oh, it like scares them, or they think that, you know, maybe the religious person is being fatalistic in a way, but they don't realize that I kind of love talking about God. It's the only thing that gives my life purpose, is talking about death and sharing these sort of ideas and getting to the root with friends.
Yeah, and that's why people get turned off from God, because they're like, he would have never created a devil. Everything would be wonderful all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that is a very, in my mind anyway, a common plot hole, if you will, in the Bible. God created all good. Okay, well, that's not true. What are you talking about? There's so much bad. In fact, most of it's bad.
Yeah, then why do babies die?
Yeah. Why does all this bad stuff happen? But then you could say, oh, that's human. That's the devil. And it really is just, it feels like this reaching when like Einstein said he thinks all the equations of the universe should be sort of simple and like an inch long. He's like, they shouldn't be more than that. If we're making equations that are pages long, that's not the universe. But I think in the East, they're really trying to emphasize the interconnectedness of God and the universe in a way that the West does not. West is purely materialistic, but it gets deeper. The consciousness, how we think, but it stops short of saying, you notice, as the West does, you are God. It stops short. It doesn't say it. It's so implied in all these things. If it's in my mind, if it's in my attitude, if the consciousness of God is you're saying that I am God. And Krishna's like, no. I did not say that, my friend. You said that. And I'm like, no, but you said that. He's like, no.
Oh, is that the unwritten rule where he can't go as far as just coming out right and saying that?
Yeah, because honestly, if he said it, it would be a lie. And this is where we come to sort of living on two planes at once. The closest that the West came to saying this, as we know, I am who am. I am who I am. But you say I am who am. Who is I? I am who am? Because you're not saying it, I'm saying it. So it's the strangest thing. They won't say it, but they will imply it, because if they said it, it wouldn't be true. It was meant to be implied that you are God. Sure, you're a piece of God. You're like a presence of God. You are a appendage of God, but you are not God. You need to know that you're not God, but you have the spirituality of him. It's so deep and it's so subtle, and I hope you guys could understand. I was thinking about this week, that old question everyone asks, where does goodness come from, or where does morality come from if not from God? And I kind of had this thought, does it not just come from consciousness? Deep. The Christians won't like this very much. But if God is consciousness, as described in the Eastern tradition, then good and evil could come from consciousness.
It's like it's like duh.
Yeah, duh. I shouldn't hurt somebody because I don't want to be hurt.
I should do this, not that.
Yeah,
duh.
That never really worked for me, saying, "Oh, goodness comes from God." Like I know to do the right thing most of the time. Let's say you can't see it from God's perspective. Maybe He knows the worldly good, capital G or whatever. But yeah, I know that hurting people is bad because I don't want to be hurt. That's consciousness. And I suppose it doesn't really fit for like psychopaths and stuff like that. But it really feels like the more conscious you are, the closer to good you become. The more present you are, it's like we don't have to have these thoughts about everything, these distinguishments between things. Consciousness is good. You don't have to tell somebody that's conscious not to kill a baby. Like really think about it. I always thought about this and I couldn't put it to words till maybe even this week. But like, you don't have to teach somebody that, because if they're conscious, they know it.
It's also like ingrained in us.
Exactly.
You see something cute, like your brain knows, like, oh, it's a little defenseless, little cute thing. I
don't have to tell you, don't kill that thing. Don't chuck it against a wall.
It's a threat.
And it seems like as soon as you say, I am the divine, or you are the divine,
boom,
it sets you up to lose that right away.
Wow. Yep. Very deep.
Because it doesn't leave that little space there to live on two planes.
Wow.
If you take that final step.
There it is! And that's why they always imply it poetically, so deep, much like the law, much like all this stuff. Once you say you're the divine, I am God, you're on one plane. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of talking negatively about humanity. Oh, I'm poor little old me. It's totally just going to the opposite end of the spectrum.
Don't go all the way there. Yeah. All right, now you're there. Don't say you're there. Yeah. All right, now you're there.
Right, because even Christians, they struggle with this more than anybody, because they're too... guilty. I'm human. Oh, poor me. Oh, I should do more. Oh,
I sure am.
Seriously. And when really you're more divine than that. You're not too divine, but you're a lot more divine than that, man. And there's a lot of power that goes behind you. But again, I feel guilty saying it because these become ideas in people's minds and it gets misconstrued. So Krishna goes on for 20 more verses, on and on. I am this, I am that. I am this, I am that. Dude, it's crazy. I just skipped ahead to almost at the end here, where he says, of secrets I am silence. Of the wise, I am wisdom. Boom.
Man.
Now, this is sort of just a recapitulation of what we just said and spoke about.
I hear the wisdom is a secret.
Yeah, no.
That's what I hear.
I think it is no mistake that those two are tied right next to each other, and it's not next to the shark one. Of secrets I am silence, and of the wise I am wisdom.
Oh, man.
Wisdom is the silence in many cases. Speaking gives it all away.
Right, there's no secret if you talk about it.
Yeah, as simple as that. I like doing that too. Bring it to the worldly sense as well. And God, see, this is deep, right? Because much like all this, it's so deep because he's talking for 50 verses. I am this, I am that, but he's not saying anything. And so he says, so it's almost like God is not telling the secret of himself, implying that we should do the same and not tell the secret of ourself. Isn't that deep? Because God can only teach us in a way that we would understand. So he's saying once you tell the secret of yourself, then you lose living on two planes at once. You lose the true secret.
Whoa. And then what really drives my mind crazy is like, is God also living on two planes at once? And then those two planes that we're both living on are two separate planes?
Yeah, then it splits for eternity, and maybe that's what the imagination is.
Because it seems like, I believe this to be enlightened, to be you have to be in the middle way, as they call it, living two planes at once.
Yeah.
It seems like there's no way God could only live on one plane. It seems like he would have to live between two.
Yeah, I could see it, man. And I see it as the way that everything's already here. Everything is here, so that the moment you think there's a secret or a secret to tell, or you open your mouth, it also destroys it
crumbles.
as well. It crumbles, much like the wave collapse. Isn't it interesting? Quantum is part of the world. Wave collapse. And it's exactly how the mind works. Very strange, very interesting. And the big finish of today, verse 42. Arjuna! What is the need to know of all this? I would like to know. That's what I'm asking. I'm sure we'd all like to know. As he's explaining for 30 verses. Suffice it to know that just a fragment of me can pervade and sustain the entire cosmos. So again, the context, he's saying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this and that, 50 verses. And he's like, why am I even saying this? Do you understand why I'm saying this? Suffice it to say that just a fragment of me could pervade and sustain the entire cosmos. Super fucking deep. Last verse. What do you guys take from this?
If you implement one thing he said, any of the many things he said, you will find enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
Just do any of the things I said.
Wow, deep.
Yeah, that's what
I take that as a mustard seed a little bit too. Like, just a piece. All you need is a piece, baby.
A fraction.
So I'm thinking here that maybe after all this, I swear to God, it was so funny because I thought I thought God was avoiding the question. You know, he's like, how do I keep you in mind? And he's like, don't worry, I'm a shark. I am his son. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, you're not going to answer this, are you? But he answers like 50 verses later and basically says that a fragment can pervade and sustain. So.
Wow, you know what I think it is?
What's
just
that?
like not taking the final step to say I am God.
Yep.
It's that fragment is the same piece on the inverse side. And it's like that one piece is admitting I am not God.
Pretty deep. I think you basically got it. The way I would put it is that you cannot not keep God in your thoughts. By this very definition. Wow. Krishna explained himself as being in everything. You can't not keep God in your thoughts because he's already here. We're living in two planes at once, witnessing it the best way we can without having too much emphasis on the other, and constantly awakening from humanity to divine and divine to humanity at all times.
Wow.
We keep it all fresh and engaged in the commitment in our mind.
That small fragment will always be there, like you said, because as long as there is a consciousness or a mind to interpret him saying that,
right,
then it's true just by the fact that you're reading it and you're hearing the message and you're getting the communication from
I like that
the
a lot
universe.
because that's kind of a clue to my final big statement here, which is that maybe, just maybe, with all these implications, that the fragment of God that he doesn't want to say, that he took 50 verses, in fact, to avoid, is that the fragment is perhaps Arjuna himself. Also, from our context, humanity. Or from our context, I am who am, the self. He talked around it as much as he possibly could. What is the fragment of God? God consciousness, spirit in the mind. Consciousness is God, not the physical world. A fragment of that, the smallest fragment you can imagine. What's the smallest fragment you can imagine? Is the single mind witnessing the world. The tiniest thing that could not even possibly start to comprehend the whole. The fragment is the self.
That's just our language confusing us again, because a fragment entails that it's part of something larger as opposed to being part of the whole thing.
Damn. Purposely confusing, almost because it would need to be, because it's so simple that humans wouldn't comprehend it any other way. Damn, that's deep. We got Eastern. Let's get a little more Eastern with Mitch translates the Tao.
Yeah, because a fragment entails a piece of something that ends, and a piece of something that's ending.
Oh, very deep, my friend. Mitch translates the Tao, chapter 51. The Tao gives birth to it. Virtue gives nourishment to it. Things give form to it. The flow completes it. Therefore, there are none of the 10,000 things that do not respect the Tao and honor virtue. The respect of Tao and the honor of virtue is commanded by no man, and yet it is done naturally. Thus the Tao gives birth to it, and virtue gives nourishment to it. Develop it, rear it, become it, master it, support it, protect it. Live without possessing life. Act without relying on action. Grow without controlling growth. This is known as mysterious virtue. Ooh! Anything jump out?
Become it, but support it. That seems like a paradox.
Could be.
I don't know how you can support something that you're becoming.
You can't support yourself on a minimum wage income?
Well, if I want to become something, how can I support what I'm becoming?
The 10,000 things came back.
Oh, yes, your favorite.
Everything.
Everything, yes. Yeah. Everyone, keep in mind to our audience, 10,000 things is everything.
The universe. Everything you see.
You know, in ancient Chinese, they didn't even have a number for a million. They're like, 10,000!
That's the biggest number.
That's the biggest thing in the universe.
So everything respects the Tao.
Yes.
And honors virtue. Everything.
Yep.
And it's done that. No one has to tell it.
Boom.
No one has to tell it.
There it is.
You know, it's almost like I want to say that God creating bad doesn't apply here. It's saying that it's just natural.
Yeah, just natural. Doesn't have to have any other words. Natural. Natural is the closest thing to a concept that I could think of while still being a word.
Man, this Tao is using way too many words.
Oh,
Yeah.
rare.
What it should say is, it is what it is, baby. That's, I think,
I'm going to translate the whole down.
That's what this verse is saying. The reason I say that is because the virtue and honor happening naturally. It's like almost like this Tao is telling you it already is aligned.
Yeah.
Natural is the perfect
like
word
that.
because good and bad are really only up to our interpretations.
Right. I like that a lot. That's what Poe just saying.
Yep.
And the head creates these ideas and it's already misaligned. So.
Yep. Because for all we know, the bad things that are happening really, I mean, it sounds gay, but could be blessings in disguise, as they say. You know, we don't really know what bad is because it could be opening the door to something amazing and divine.
Right.
And I think it, like we keep saying, develop it, rear it, become it, meaning just the 10,000 things, like everything, life,
Yeah.
the universe, develop it, rear it, become it,
Well, that
master it,
could answer
support it.
Evan's first question about the paradox. It is many things while still having the underlyings of one thing.
And you also build it by not building it and act with actlessness.
Yeah.
So it's forcing you again to play the role as just a passenger as opposed to trying to intervene too much into it.
I like it a lot because it's so tied in with our reading with the Bhagavad Gita. It's saying it already exists. The Tao gives birth to it, nourishment to it, gives form to it complete. It's saying it's already there. It's saying everything is already here and you honor it naturally.
Just do what you do.
Just do what you do. Then it goes through this list. Develop it, rear it, master. That's all the things you do in your day-to-day life. You do it anyway.
What was your saying, Poach? It's all good, baby. Or something like that.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, baby.
It is what it is, baby.
And then, of course, the big conclusion: live without possessing life. This was Mitch's fine translation. Nobody says it like this. Y'all gotta buy Mitch Translates the Tao. Coming to stores
Live without
soon.
possessing it.
Live without
That's
possessing life. I made it cyclical.
But this is my life.
But it's mine.
How could I not possess it?
Act without relying on action. You just act without saying, "Oh, I gotta act. I gotta wake up at 8:30 to do this. I gotta Grow without controlling growth. I think about tying shit onto a tree. No, it is what it is already. This is known as mysterious virtue because there is no virtue, but it is so hard to complete it, as we stated earlier. The hardest thing for humanity to do, and maybe this is our curse, maybe this is original sin, is to just let things be. Our demonic and worldly nature always wants to control, wants to possess, and the opposite of all these things here. But if you can do one thing this week, is take a deep breath and realize this moment is real. I'm in it. And you'll be that much closer to ancient wisdom. This has been episode 70. Catch ya next time.
Dry season has begun.